This episode of WDW Today is being sponsored by All-Star Vacation Homes. And, we talk every week about what a great deal All-Star Vacation Homes are. But you know what? It's got even better. Now, if you can get a free rental car or $100 worth of gas or a grocery gift card with a 7-night stay with All-Star Vacation Homes. So if you're going to be going there for a week anyway at Walt Disney World, why not stay at an All-Star Vacation Home and maybe get that free rental car? Or maybe $100 worth of gas, or that grocery card, whatever's going to be more worth it to you. It's a great opportunity to try out All-Star Vacation Homes and see why they're not only a sponsor of ours, but why we talk about them so much. Check them out online at www.allstarvacationhomes.com.
This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Friday, April 2nd, 2010, and this is episode 702 of WDW Today. I'm Matt Hochberg of StudioCentral.com. Joining me on today's show is Len Testa, co-author of The Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World. Welcome to the show, Len.
How's it going, Matt?
Outstanding.
Fabulous.
Also joining us on today's show is Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Matt, contrary to belief on some of the fan sites, you have decided not to leave and decided to stay for a little while.
My lawyers inform me that I must say yes.
Okay.
I regret that my lawyers informed me that I may not answer that question on the grounds that it might incriminate me.
Yeah. and as I posted on Facebook today, yawn, because we did that 4 years ago.
Awesome. Before you continue the introductions, I had a friend from college contact me yesterday. He sent me an email out of the blue, so it's been like 20 years. Jeez. And my immediate question was to a common friend that I had from college. And my first question to him was, any statute of limitations has already run out, right? Anything that we did that might have been, different in college.
Nice. Also joining us on today's show is Mike Scopa, a senior feature writer and blogger for allears.net. Welcome, Mike.
We sail with the tide.
Sail with the tide. I'm going to say Norway, and it's wrong.
Wasn't it Pirates?
It's Pirates, but it was back about 15 or 16 years ago when we last heard it. It was recited by the parrot out front.
Ah, yes. Of course, that's what I was referring to.
Plus.
Of course.
When you were 10, right?
That's right. I was a smart one back then. A smart lad. Anyway, on today's show, we're going to be talking about SafetyWalt Disney World, and certainly it's come to the forefront of our attention once more with the incident, if you're listening to this podcast on the day it actually comes out, it occurred yesterday, with the Fort Wilderness bus incident and a small child, unfortunately, being struck by the bus and the child passing, and this kind of brings to light, this is not an isolated incident, unfortunately. Isolated in that there have been a string of incidents, certainly this year, last year, and in the recent past. And we thought it might be time to kind of take a look at the safety record over here and talk about SafetyWalt Disney World because it's an important topic. Mike Scopa, this is something that you definitely wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I have some friends who work at Reedy Creek, and I know that this really affects them. They're all deeply dedicated to keeping guests safe and healthy and happy down there. And when this happens, they really feel badly about it. And in many cases, from what I have seen, it's one of those things where I think that it's sometimes when people go on vacation, especially when they go to Walt Disney World, they are safe in Mickey's arms. But I think that you, as a parent, cannot keep your guard down. You need to keep your guard up, and you always have to be aware. And as an adult, you always have to be aware of what's going on. And when I read the story and heard the story, I felt badly about it. And the first thing I thought of was, how could this happen? We were at Fort Wilderness last month, and we have a good idea as to what it's like around there. And I'm just trying to figure out why something like this would happen. But the bottom line, Matt, is that regardless of where you are, if you're in Walt Disney World or not, you still have to use common sense and be alert and be aware and watch your children.
Absolutely. I mean, being vigilant is always a priority. And, even if you go to Wikipedia and you look at every single incident that's ever happened at the Disney parks, I mean, let's say I'll ballpark it at maybe 50 over the course of from the 70s onwards. And considering that one thing Disney I was reading the Orlando Sentinel that at any given day there's about 250,000 people on Walt Disney World property. So 50 people over the course of 30 some odd years, right, 40 some odd years now almost, and given 250K, obviously it's fluctuated over the years, but still, I mean, the odds are certainly in your favor that you'll never, ever, ever run into something really affecting you. But you're right, Mike, you have to be vigilant nonetheless, because it'd be silly not to. You have to always keep your guard up, even if you think you are completely safe.
Yeah, I mean, a bus is a bus, and this, unfortunately, this child was fatally injured when he collided with the bus, and we don't know all the details. We don't know. We have an idea as to where in Fort Wilderness it might have happened. We just don't know what the details are, and I just, I feel badly for the family, and one of the things that I think about when I hear things like this is that the families are always going to associate Disney World with this. I personally, in 2003 or 4, I don't remember exactly what year, a friend of mine in my neighborhood, actually right across the street from me, he drowned at the Polynesian, and he was not in any condition to be out by himself, and he just fell off the dock there and drowned. And it's one of the things that hits home. So every time I hear something like this, I think, gee, we have to be careful wherever we are, even in Walt Disney World.
Well, I'm obligated to bring this up. I feel obligated, and that is, I think you all would agree with me that the amount of incidents that have occurred at Walt Disney World over the last 10 to 20 years seems like there's been more in those last 10 to 20 years than in the 10 to 20 years plus that predated that. Would that be accurate, that it seems like over the past few years we've seen many more incidents than we had seen in years past?
I think that's possibly true, because maybe there are more people going through the turnstiles than and more visitors than, within the last 10 years there have been more visitors than maybe in the previous 10 years. That could be one reason. There could be a number of other reasons. People are just, I don't know, doing more things, and if more moving parts, so to speak. So there's more of a chance of something happening. I think that like I said though before, like in 99% of the cases, it's something that somehow, I hate to put it this way, but somehow I think that it's the guest's responsibility to do whatever he or she can do to make sure that they are safe. And as much as people would love to possibly put some of the blame on the resort, I don't think that's fair at all.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mike. I think one thing that when you look at a list of these incidents, like you said, a vast majority are either the guest had in the case of sometimes they had a pre-existing condition that they did or didn't know about, so not Disney's fault because there was a pre-existing condition. That you're right, it's not like there's a lot of things going wrong here. But Len, what are your thoughts on the safety record at Disney? Because you obviously have seen, I mean, just this year we have obviously this incident that just occurred. There was that another bus incident last week, right? With it was a bus hit another bus. No one died, but some injuries. You had the monorail incident, which definitely resonates in many people's minds still. That happened last year. Obviously a lot of different things have happened on rides. What are your thoughts on the matter?
So the question I always ask myself is what's the average for similar types of transportation or similar incidents outside of Walt Disney World? So for example, the monorail accident, which was terrible. It was definitely a tragedy. Mm-hmm. The question you have to ask yourself is, though, what's the safety record versus comparable forms of transportation? Right. That was immediately the first question that we asked. And what prompted it was we started getting questions from readers about things like, an actual question we got was, I'm staying at the Contemporary and I want to take the monorail, but I'm not sure whether it's safer to walk versus take the monorail. And so that's an interesting question because you can actually quantify those things, right? You can look at how many fatalities per passenger mile the monorail has, and then you can quantify the walking distance through traffic going from the Contemporary to the Magic Kingdom is, right? and you can look at the fatalities. And here's the thing: even though the accident with the monorail was again it was a tragedy, right? And I think based on the accident report, it may have been avoidable, right? Lots of things went wrong. The monorail is still like an order of magnitude more safe than walking from the Contemporary. And I don't think because you have to go across an intersection, and if you look at how many pedestrians die in intersections around the United States,
right,
you're like 10 times more likely to die or have an accident at the intersection than you are to die on the monorail. So that's the thing that I think people need to keep in mind. It's not that it's not surprising that accidents happen in Walt Disney World. The buses travel millions of miles a year, or at least hundreds of thousands of miles a year, if not millions. The question is what's a good safety record given the number of passenger miles driven? What's a good safety record for number of fatalities per guest on ride, right? So number of passenger rides. Those are the numbers that are the most important. I think by any objective measure, Disney is far safer than most activities we undertake. I mean, you're far more likely to die on your way to work than you are on a ride in Disney. I think that's what people forget. Well, we say absolutely right because we've done the numbers, but I don't think it's obvious to everyone, right? And that it's the risk measurement thing is the thing that people definitely need to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think one thing, you mentioned the monorail, for instance. There have been 5 incidents since 1971 at Walt Disney World. Only one is involved in fatality, which was that unfortunate incident back in July. But otherwise, there have been minor injuries and things of that nature. And you're right, Len. In terms of statistical analysis, the odds are so far out there. I really believe lottery winnings are you're in that kind of a field. And one thing I did was I talked to some cast members about this. This came to the forefront. I know we wanted to talk about this topic, and I kind of wanted to get an idea of what the cast members were thinking about. And the cast members had some interesting thoughts. That there's kind of a consensus out there that it's interesting how Disney handles it, because I think one is that some cast members feel that Disney the things are a little stretched, a little thin, and I think Scopy, you talked about that a little bit before. How there's some odd 60,000 cast members that work at Walt Disney World on any given day these days, and from what I understand is that we had those. Remember, there were those layoffs 2 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And it just seems that perhaps things are a little too stretched out in terms of responsibility, perhaps in terms of, having less people doing more. The other thing, this is interesting. This one I really didn't consider before. And that is that, Disney doesn't really, there isn't a whole lot of penalty for the ramifications for what happens. And what do I mean by that? When accidents happen, in some cases they're someone's at fault or not at fault. There's never an incident where the cast members are never laid off, reprimanded. It seems it just seems like these things are kind of, they're not transferred from one division to another. It seems like there isn't, not to say that there isn't penalty for it, but do you know what I'm saying? That one of the cast members I talked about was that it doesn't seem like Disney really, not that they don't care, but they don't punish that sort of behavior regardless of what happens. You have to have something has to happen, more training, return to training. You know what I mean? And I don't think the cast members get that sense that that's something that's going on over there. So that was some interesting feedback that I had received.
Well, I can tell you that over the last 30, 40 years going there, every time I have seen a guest in trouble, I've seen cast members, there's no hesitation to go over and help. During reunion, a friend of mine was having some issues, and there was always someone there. Those people who are donning those name tags to designate them as cast members, they don't hesitate at all. And Reedy Creek, those people, they're just ready to help at any time. I've had the honor of being in the Reedy Creek dispatch station, and I'll tell you, they are on the ball. They have a lot of things. They have a lot of technology at their hands, and there's always. I feel safe down there, and no matter which park I'm at, no matter which resort, I feel that if me or my family or my friends are in distress, I feel that they're going to be handled really well. So despite all the layoffs, Matt, I mean, I think they're doing an exceptional job. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that when we talk about their safety record, I think one of the most amazing things to think about is that we recognize that this is a destination for people all over the world with many different languages. And when you think about the language barrier and how many people do not speak English. I can remember being down there, Len, a couple of times in the summer. There was an incident at a Spaceship Earth, and I looked into it, and there was a family from Brazil or whatever, and they didn't know how to get on and how to do the loading and offloading of that. They just didn't understand English. And there are lots of times when the language barrier comes into play here, yet with that and with the number of international guests there, they still have an exceptional record. So that's really something that I think a lot of people don't take into consideration.
So it's interesting. I wonder if anyone's ever done an actual actuary study of how safe you are in Walt Disney World. I bet you it's better than average.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't forget that until about 2001, Disney didn't have to report anything. They kept it all to themselves, and really anything that came out was anecdotal at best. I mean, thank God there wasn't anything like catastrophic that occurred there that they couldn't hide. But since 2001, now they are required to report, I believe, to the state. Yeah. But even so, they're kind of still in this, they just report it. It's kind of like the same way they report their taxes almost. You know what I mean? They made this much money and these many incidents happen. It's not that they're under any kind of jurisdiction. Like for instance, if an airplane crashes, boom, regardless, the airline is under scrutiny from the FAA, the National Highway and Transportation Safety Board, things like that happen. These are more, but you're right. I mean, in terms of just the last 10 years now that they've been reporting, it would be interesting, Len, to see what kind of report. But I mean, if you look over a list of the incidents that have happened, I mean, you're still talking about a minute amount. And as we mentioned earlier, a lot of them are from pre-existing conditions, people with heart conditions. So it's not that the ride caused the problem. It's just that the ride exacerbated the issue.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't that it caused any issue. It's not like if someone rode, perfectly physically fit person rode, Mission Space and died as a result of it. They died, they died because of the condition. There have been a few exceptions to that. But those are even more rare than any of the other incidents that have occurred.
And there are plenty of warnings. I mean, when you have a ride like Mission Space, where I think there was something like a combination of 11 auditory and visual warnings, I mean, there's always that liability that Disney is aware of. And so they make sure that everyone knows, if you're going into Space Mountain and you're pregnant, well,
Yeah. I think also a major problem, and Newell, I think you could probably comment on this, is that in today's world, whenever there's an incident in Walt Disney World, and you also saw this with the SeaWorld incident with the trainer last month, but whenever there's an incident there, the media loves to harp on this to no end. They dedicate half hours to this in the news thing, whereas the same incident can, some kid can get hit by a bus in downtown Orlando, and it'll just be some kid was hit by a bus, moving on, let's see what's going on in sports today.
No, that's exactly what the media does. I mean, anytime there's a major earthquake, that night on the news, 11 o'clock, could it happen here? Tune in. And it's all about...
you're in Kansas.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about getting ratings. And, I mean, I'm not going to see tonight on the news, can a boy get hit by a bus in New York City? Because, yes, it can happen. When you have that many buses in use, in service, and you have that many people in the area that those buses are in service or those vehicles or whatever, you're going to have incidents. It's the nature of, or the law of averages, if you will. And that's just how, how it is.
It is.
I just think that the media makes such a big deal of it that it leads to situations like Len got that letter from somebody who says, am I safer to walk?
Well, it's Disney.
No, you're not.
It's
like saying, am I safer to walk in New York City than take the subway? No.
Right, because the odds of getting hit by something are greater by walking.
Right, but it's Disney. I mean, I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to see that story on the news here because, it's the city.
People get killed every day in the city.
Well, not only that, but it's no one's going to tune in to watch that story because it's not exciting. Yeah. But the fact that it's Disney,
I know what you mean.
People are going to tune in and say, maybe it's, and you're going to see, you watch, Matt, because you're local, you'll see the news more. are the theme parks safe?
Oh yeah.
Are you risking your life by buying a ticket? You're going to see.
And they'll bring up every single safety incident in the last 20 years that have occurred.
Right. And they'll bring up the SeaWorld incident, which had really nothing to do with guests interact. You know what I mean? So you'll hear all those things. That's how the media glorifies things like that, and they do bring it out, and it's all to grab ratings.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that it isn't this. Disney World is a very, very safe place, and I think that regardless of what you read and hear in the news, I mean they're trying to sensationalize a lot of what you hear because it's Disney World, somewhere you go on vacation, and because of that it becomes a little different than a routine traffic incident in any given city. So I think it's important to understand that while yes, something terrible could happen to you, that it's not a very likely thing to happen by any stretch of the imagination. And also that going back to what we originally were saying, what Mike was saying, is that you have to, regardless, you have to keep track and be vigilant and be safe. And that when you're, walking in a resort, even though it's themed like you're in Hawaii and it feels like, yeah, baby, on to spring break and this is great, you have to still watch out and keep your guard up, not only there, but also in the parks and, be knowledgeable of your surroundings. That's definitely an important thing. Closing thoughts on the matter.
I think that one of the things that I would not want anyone to do is to react negatively to this and just let them know that like you said, like Mike said, the law of averages. It's amazing that there aren't that many more incidents down there, and it just talks about their safety record and that the responsibility. One thing we should learn is that the responsibility is not entirely Disney's for safety. I think the responsibility is a shared responsibility, and that the guests share that with the resort, and that we have to remind people about that.
I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow there's a new rule implementing that says that bicycle traffic cannot be on the same route as a bus or motor vehicle traffic. In the case of Fort Wilderness, I wouldn't be surprised if they restrict bicycle traffic to the loops only and not, Fort Wilderness is a very unique resort. I mean, anyone who's ever driven it, even just past Tent Fest, there are bikes, there are golf carts that are in the way. It's very
wooded. I mean,
it's very difficult to maneuver around there, especially with a large bus. So I can, again, with the law of averages, that is not your typical road. It's not a typical layout. It's very difficult to see and have all those kinds of traffic on the same road. So I wouldn't be surprised, if they do it resort-wide, property-wide, that no bicycle traffic can be on the same road as vehicle traffic.
Just like they, I don't know, Matt, I don't know if you've noticed, but are they still not allowing guests to ride up front in the monorails? I don't know if they've turned the
I believe that's still, to my knowledge, it's still in place, but you still can't do that. But it would be interesting to see what happens here. But again, just know yourselves, obviously your health conditions and bad backs, pregnancy, pre-existing conditions, and
know your surroundings.
Know your surroundings, exactly. Great way of putting it. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Don't forget that this episode of WDW Today has been sponsored by All-Star Vacation Homes. And if you're going to Walt Disney World sometime soon and you're looking for somewhere to stay and you say, you know what, let's try somewhere else new, and you start looking at the other resorts, well, why not try an All-Star Vacation Home? Why not have something a little bit different? You're going to get an All-Star Vacation Home, which is going to give you lots of space, lots of great amenities, and you know what? It's going to be so close to Walt Disney World. I mean, there are many properties you can see Expedition Everest from your house. So that's how close you are. It's not like you're 10 miles away and there's going to be a 20-minute queue.
You'll smell Yeti.
They should use that as their slogan. They're totally missing out. Good idea, Len. Check them out online at www.allstarvacationhomes.com. If you want to find our older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the WDW Today website at wdwtoday.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, and Mike Newell, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.
Stupid Judy, stupid energy.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio.